everything to sit down on the bank of the Ganges and fast until death. Okay, so he was a great emperor, Samrat, and he had everything. So then, why did he give up everything? So normally, a person who's frustrated, then he leaves everything, and then you know he fasts until death, something like that. But Maharaj Parikshit had everything. There was no question of being frustrated or going through some depression. So, so then they're surprised. Why did he give up everything and go to the bank of the Ganges? Text 11. He was such a great emperor that all his enemies would come and bow down at his feet and surrender all their wealth for their own benefit. He was full of youth and strength, and he possessed insuperable kingly opulences. Why did he want to give up everything, including his life? So, again, similar question. He had everything. It's not that he had a tough time with his enemies. No, all the enemies were surrendered to him. So then why did he give up everything, including his life? And text 12. Shivaya lokasya bhavaya bhutaye yattama shloka parayana janaha jivanti natma tamaso parashrayam mumocha nirvritya kuta kalevaram. Those who are devoted to the cause of the personality of Godhead live only for the welfare, development, and happiness of others. They do not live for any selfish interest. So even though the Emperor Parikshit was free from all attachment to worldly possessions, how could he give up his mortal body which was shelter for others? So one is supposed to live for the benefit of others. So Uttama Shloka Parayana Jana. So those who are devoted to the personality of Godhead, then Jivanti na Atma Artham. Atma Artham. They do not live. Na Jivanti Atma Artham. They do not live for selfish interest. But what they live for? Para Ashrayam. They live for giving shelter to others. So then why did Maharaj Parikshit, whose body was supposed to give shelter to others, then why did he give up the body instead of giving shelter to others? So in this connection, we see that how, of course, this comes later on in the 6th canto, Datiji Rishi, when he was requested by the Devatas to give his bones for making Vajra. So then Datiji Rishi agreed. Of course, initially he was playing around with the Devatas. Initially he said, oh, you don't know how painful it is to give up the body. How can you ask me to give up my life like this? So, but in any case, so the Devatas were desperate because they wanted the Vajra to kill with Rasu. So then Dadichi Rishi says that, yes, after all, what is the use of this material body? It is simply going to be food for the worms and the jackals and so many other insects. So what is the use of this body? So therefore, the body is meant to be used for the service of others. And then he says that if the body is not used for the service of others, then such a person becomes a laughing stock even for the trees, for the immobile living entities. So therefore, why? Because even the trees are so selfless. Okay? The trees, everything is for others. Then human beings are supposed to be better than them. So therefore, the human body is meant for the service of others, and ultimately, of course, the service of the Supreme Lord. So therefore, the Shaunakadi Rishi, they're surprised that why he gave up the body. Instead of using the body for serving others, why did he give up the body? So Prabhupada writes towards the end of his purpose, selfishness is either self-centered or self-extended. He was neither. His interest was to please the Supreme Truth, Personality of Godhead. The king is the representative of the Supreme Lord, and therefore the king's interest must be identical with that of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord wants all living beings to be obedient to him and thereby become happy. Therefore, the king's interest is to guide all subjects back to the kingdom of God. Hence, the activities of the citizens should be coordinated, that they can at the end go back home, back to Godhead. Okay, so that is the duty of the king. Naradeva. Text 13. Tatsarvam na samachakshva prishto yadiha kinchana manye dvam vishaye vacham snatam anyatra chandasa. We know that you are expert in the meaning of all subjects except some portions of the Vedas, and thus you can clearly explain the answers to all the questions we have just put to you. Purport. Please read.
The difference between the Vedas and the Puranas is like that between the Brahmanas and the Parivarajas. The Brahmanas are meant to administer some fruitive sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas, but the Parivarajaka or learned preachers are meant to disseminate transcendental knowledge to one and all. As such, the Parivarajaka are not always expert in pronouncing the Vedic mantras, which are practiced systematically by assent and meter by the Brahmanas, who are meant for administering Vedic rites. Yet, it should not be considered that the Brahmanas are more important than the itinerant preachers. They are one and different simultaneously because they are meant for the same end in different ways. There is no difference also between the Vedic mantras and what is explained in the Puranas and Itihasa. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, it is mentioned in Madhyadina Shruti that all the Vedas, namely Sama, Atharva, Rig, Yajur, Puranas, Itihasas, Upanishads, etc., are emanations from the breathing of the Supreme Being. The only difference is that the Vedic mantras are mostly begun with Pranava Omkara, and it requires some training to practice the metric pronunciation of the Vedic mantras. But that does not mean that Srimad Bhagavatam is of less importance than the Vedic mantras. On contrary, it is the ripened fruit of all the Vedas as stated before. Besides that, the most perfectly liberated soul, Srila Sukadeva Goswami, is absorbed in the studies of the Bhagavatam, although he is already self-realized. Srila Sutta Goswami is following his footsteps, and therefore his position is not less important because he was not expert in chanting Vedic mantras with metric pronunciation, which depends more on practice than actual realization. Realization is more important than parrot-like chanting.
Okay, so here the sages are saying that Sutta Goswami, he may not be expert in Chandasat, certain portion of the Vedas. But still, they're saying that you can clearly explain everything. So why he is not expert in certain aspects of the Vedas? Because Sutta Goswami is not born in a Brahmana family. As we know, he is born in which family? Sutta family. Sutta family. Pratiloma marriage. You know what is Anuloma, Pratiloma?
Yeah.
So what is Pratiloma marriage? एक जन बोलो भाई.
When the caste of mother is higher than the caste of father.
So mother is
Brahmana,
father is Kshatriya. So Prabhupada explains this in the Krishna book in the Romarshan pastime. So he's not born of Brahma family, lower caste family. So therefore, usually the Brahmanas, they are expert in chanting all the Vedic mantras. They learn the Vedas right from childhood and all that. So because he is born in a Sutta family, so therefore he may not be so expert. The sages know that he may not be so expert in chanting all the Vedic mantras and all that. But they say that, but still, you can clearly explain. Samachakshva. So clear, because chakshu, samachakshva. So like chakshu is a clear vision. So because he has a clear vision, so therefore he can answer all the questions, prishta, questions that have been put to him. So here Srila Prabhupada is explaining that how the Brahmanas may be expert in chanting all the Vedic mantras, and there are the Parivrajakacharyas who may not be so expert, but they're preaching the message. So in Krishna's pastimes, we have the well-known pastime. Which pastime? Of some expert chanters of the Vedic mantras.
Brahmanas.
So the Brahmanas were chanting very expertly, but what happened?
But they denied to serve the Lord.
So what was lacking?
Fear. They did not lose the fear.
Okay. What realization they're lacking?
Supreme Lord.
So they were chanting the Vedic mantras, but they didn't know what is the ultimate purpose of the chanting. So it was more or less, as Prabhupada says here, parrot-like chanting. So therefore, now it is not that the chanting of the mantras or the chanting of the shlokas is not important. So yes, it is important. And so therefore, Srila Prabhupada took the trouble to put all these diacritic marks and all that, so that devotees, they learn the chanting. And that's the reason also why Srila Prabhupada at the beginning of the class, he made the devotees also chant, so that they learn how to chant the mantras, chant the shlokas. So that is definitely needed, because the chanting of the shlokas is also purifying. They are especially the verses of the Bhagavatam. But at the same time, if that chanting is not accompanied by realization, then it is useless. So the chanting of the shlokas, the chanting of the mantras must be accompanied by realization of the subject matter. So one should be able to understand the subject matter and apply the subject matter in one's life. And also explain the subject matter to others in an appealing manner. So this is that's the meaning of the last statement. Realization is more important like chanting. We're hearing in today morning's Bhagavatam class from Prabhupada. You can see how many things Prabhupada speaks in terms of modern day situation. Anybody remembers from the morning class what all things Prabhupada spoke? How he related the whole subject matter to the modern day situation. Sai Krishna Prabhu?
One thing I remember, the computer thing.
Uh-huh.
Machines have come, so the unemployment situation is.
So yes, one example is this computer. Prabhupada is talking about how because of that unemployment has increased. So what is the use of the machine? What are the things?
With computer trying to save the money, but the government is taking that very money in the form of tax.
Yes, right. So one problem leads to another. So the problem is not solved. What else? Some more example is Radhakrishna. Huh?
About education.
Ah.
It was free, but currently fees from 40.
Okay, he's talking about free education, duty of Brahmanas. Yes, free education.
Another thing of Punar Savita the
Ah.
based club and Prabhupada wanted to don't want to speak also.
Ah.
Don't want to speak.
Correct. So he was being Puna to modern day situation. And that is what made the whole subject matter so relevant for the audience. So that is the meaning of realization. Same subject matter, but then it is presented in a way that it becomes relevant to the current audience. So that is the meaning of realization. So you can see how Srila Prabhupada in every lecture and even in his purports, so he presents in such a way that the current day people can understand the subject matter. It becomes relevant for them. So, otherwise, if one simply chants the shlokas, reads the translations, and just proceeds, and if one simply has an academic study, but then the subject matter may not become relevant to the audience at hand. Then when subject matter doesn't become relevant, then students don't gain much as far as practical understanding and realization is concerned. And so therefore, ultimately the purpose of the Shastra is that people are able to what? Yes, connect and apply, so as to bring about a transformation in their lives. That is the ultimate purpose. So therefore, realization is more important than parrot-like chanting. Okay. Fine. So now, Sutta Goswami begins to answer the questions. Text 14. Sutta uvacha dvapare samunokte tritiye yuga paryaye jata parasharad yogi vasavyam kalaya hare. Sutta Goswami said, when the second millennium overlapped the third, the great sage Vyasdev was born to Parashar in the womb of Satyavati, the daughter of Vasu. Purport?
There is chronological order of the 4 millenniums, namely Satya, Dwapar, Treta, and Kali. But there is but sometimes there is overlapping. During the reign of Vaivashvat Manu, there was an overlapping of the 28th round of the 4 millenniums, and the third millennium appeared prior to the second. In that particular millennium, Lord Sri Krishna also descends, and because of this, there was some particular alteration. The mother of the great sage was Satyavati, the daughter of the Vashu, fisherman, and the father was the great Parashar Muni. That is the history of Vyasdev's birth. Every millennium is divided into 3 periods, and each period is called Sandhya. Vyasdev appeared in the third Sandhya of that particular age.
Okay, so this is the history of the Vedic literatures when they were written. Okay, read this.
In answer to the questions mentioned in the verse 3, in which yuga, at what place, a short account of Vyas' birth and activities is now presented. According to Amarkos, Paryaya means lapse. With the lapse of many yuga cycles, Yuga Paryaya, in Dwapar Yuga, when Krishna appeared, Vyasa was born. It will be explained that Krishna appeared in Dwapar Yuga of the 28th cycle of Yuga in Vaivasvat Manvantar. All yugas are divided into 3 parts: the beginning portion, Sandhya Roop, the middle portion, Yuga Roop, and the end portion, Sandhyamsh Roop. Tritiya refers to the third part of Dwapar Yuga. Vyasa was born from Satyavati, who was the daughter of Uparichara Vasu. The Vasavyam means in the womb of Satyavati. The proportions are 0.1 for the beginning portion.
No. The proportions are 1 for the beginning portion, 8 for the middle portion, and 1 for the concluding portion of the yuga. Okay, so the yuga is divided into 3 parts. That's what he said. 3 parts. The first part is called as Sandhya Rupa. The middle part is called the Yuga Rupa, and the third part is called as the Sandhyamsha Rupa. So the proportion is 1:8:1. That is the proportion of the 3 parts of the Yuga. क्या? अरे वो पॉइंट नहीं है. That is so basically the proportions are 1:8:1. And so here Vyasdev, he is born in the third portion of the Dwapar Yuga of the 28th cycle. So in every day of Brahma, there are how many Manus? 14 Manus. So in each Manvantara, there are how many cycles, Yuga cycles? 72. 72. So during the 7th Manu, the Vaivasvat Manu, 7th Manu, the 28th cycle of the 4 yugas, that is the current cycle that is going on. So in the Dwapar Yuga, in the 3rd portion of Dwapar Yuga, that is the Sandhyamsha Rupa, then Vyasdev was born. Okay. So this is what Vishwanath Chakravarti and most of the other acharyas they say. Srila Prabhupada, he gives something a little different from the other acharyas. So, but the main important thing is that Vyasadeva was born in the 3rd part of the Dwapar Yuga of the 20th millennium.
What is this overlapping?
That's what. So that part is not explained by any of the acharyas, and we tried to find out a reference from the Shastric Advisory Council. They also don't know exactly from where Srila Prabhupada got this part of his commentary, and so we leave it at that. Okay. Anyway, it doesn't make a big difference.
Thousand yuga they repeat. That is what one day of Brahma.
In one day of Brahma, Sahasra Yuga Paryantam. So there's 1000 cycles, correct? 1000 cycles in one day of Brahma. You divide 1000 by 14. 14 manus. 14 manus in one day of Brahma. Total 1000. Divide 1000 by 14, how much it comes? Yeah, so 71, 72, like that. So therefore, in one Manvantara, there are 72 cycles of the 4 yugas. ठीक है?
Is the 3rd millennium appeared prior to the 2nd? What does this say?
That's what he just now asked. So we have no comments on that. If somebody has, you can kindly enlighten us. Aditya Nambru, what are your special comments?
So probably here it is what I understood is that the meaning of overlapping is slightly. Dwapar is coming after Treta.
Correct. Thank you. We have no comments on that. Okay, text 15. Once upon a time, he, Vyasadeva, as the sun rose, took his morning ablution in the waters of the Saraswati and sat alone to concentrate. The great sage Vyasadeva saw anomalies in the duties of the millennium. This happens on the earth in different ages due to unseen forces in the course of time. Okay, so where is Vyatikaram? Where is anomalies in the Yuga? So already we saw in the previous verses also 1.1.10 various anomalies of Kali Yuga. So here Prabhupada writes, the great sages like Vyasadeva are liberated souls and therefore they can clearly see past and future. Okay, so he was seeing into the future. Now which Yuga is going on now? No, for Vyasadeva here. Dwapar Yuga, it's still Dwapar Yuga. But then he is seeing in the future. In Kali Yuga, what is going to happen, he is seeing in his meditation. So thus he could see the future anomalies in Kali age. And accordingly, he made arrangement for the people in general so that they can execute a progressive life in this age, which is full of darkness. And so, we know the anomalies. Text 17-18. The great sage who was fully equipped in knowledge could see through his transcendental vision the deterioration of everything material due to the influence of the age. He could also see that the faithless people in general would be reduced in duration of life and would be impatient due to lack of goodness. Thus he contemplated for the welfare of men in all statuses and orders of life. Okay, so some more anomalies of Kali Yuga are being mentioned. So Prabhupada writes, in this age, the duration of the material body of the people in general is much reduced. So in the morning, Mukund Madhav Prabhu was announcing somebody passed away at the age of 46. So You can see that. Duration of life is reducing. So we have to be more alert. Anytime the call may come, vacate. Vacate this house. Go to the next house. Someone has to be ready. Okay, and so is memory. Memory is also so much reduced. Therefore, all these modern gadgets are there to make up for the lost memory. Then the land does not produce food grains in the same proportion as it did in other ages. Cow does not give as much milk. Production of vegetables and fruits is less than before. As such, all living beings, both men and animals, do not have sumptuous, nourishing food due to want of so many necessities of life naturally. So four things are reducing: duration of life, memory, intelligence, and mutual dealings are full of hypocrisy and so on. So all these are the characteristics. So Prabhupada writes, as an astrologer can see the future fate of a man, or an astronomer can foretell the solar and lunar eclipses, those liberated souls who can see through the scriptures can foretell the future of all mankind. They can see this due to their sharp vision of spiritual attainments. And all such transcendentalists who are naturally devotees of the Lord are always eager to render welfare service to the people in general. They are the real friends of the people in general, not the so-called public leaders who are unable to see what is going to happen 5 minutes ahead. In this age, the people in general, as well as their so-called leaders, are all unlucky fellows, faithless in spiritual knowledge, influenced by the age of Kali, always disturbed by various diseases. Okay. So then, for the welfare of the people, then what did Vyasadeva do? Text 19. He saw that the sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas were means by which the people's occupations could be purified. And to simplify the process, he divided the one Veda into 4 in order to expand them among men. Okay, so initially there was only one Veda, that was Yajur Veda, but then obviously when it was one, it must have been very exhaustive. So therefore, to simplify for the age of Kali, then he divided the one Veda into 4, and then also gave the Puranas and the Itihasas and the Mahabharats, all that Vyasadeva gave, so for the easy understanding of the people in Kali Yuga. Text 20. The 4 divisions of the original sources of knowledge, the Vedas, were made separately, but the historical facts and authentic stories mentioned in the Puranas are called the 5th Veda. Itihasa Puranam cha Panchamo Veda Uchyate. So the Itihasas and Puranas are known as the Pancham Veda. 21. After the Vedas were divided into 4 divisions, Paila Rishi became the professor of the Rig Veda, Jaimini the professor of the Sama Veda, and Vaishampayana alone became glorified by the Yajur Veda. Okay, so Prabhupada says the different Vedas were entrusted to different learned scholars for development in various ways. The 22, the Sumanta Muni Angira, who was very devotedly engaged, was entrusted with the Atharva Veda. And my father, Romaharshan, was entrusted with Puranas and historical records, Itihasas. Okay, so in the Bhagavatam, when we read the past time, so it's mentioned that Romaharshan was basically speaking on this only, Puranas and Itihasas. That was what he was speaking on, because that was what was entrusted to him. 23. All these learned scholars in their turn rendered their entrusted Vedas unto their many disciples, grand disciples, and great grand disciples, and thus the respective branches of the followers of the Vedas came into being. So that's how the knowledge was passed on from generation to generation. In this purport, Prabhupada says, the original source of knowledge is the Vedas. There are no branches of knowledge, either mundane or transcendental, which do not belong to the original text of the Vedas. So all knowledge has to be there in the Vedas. Veda means knowledge. So even material knowledge, spiritual knowledge, everything is there in the Vedas. Prabhupada ends by saying, no one therefore can claim independent knowledge beyond the Vedas. Everything has to be there in the Vedas. Huh. Seems to be one person only, yes. in the word to word, Prabhupada writes Sumantu, also known as Sumantu Muni. Sumantu Muni Angira.
In purport, Angira Muni.
And the purport is said Angira Muni. So I don't know what exactly Sumantu means. Sumantu Muni. Maybe it's the name of a place or what, I don't know. Anybody knows?
Because in word to word it is written, it is also known as Sumantu.
So that means Angira Muni is also known as Sumantu Muni. Looks like.
Here it says that all the knowledge belongs to Vedas. Like that. They ask, what about scientific modern knowledge?
Yes. So which scientific knowledge?
Like what are the technology and what we see? It's all there in the Vedas.
Yes. So we see how in the previous times they had much better technology. Correct? Huh? Pushpak Viman.
Sanjaya able to see.
Then Brahmastra. The Brahmastra was so precise. So such weapons don't exist now. So they had much better technology than what we have now. What? So many types of weapons. In Bhagavad Gita also we read. So many water weapons, fire weapons, air weapons, so many types of weapons. So much better technology they had. And what type of palaces Vishwakarma was building? Anybody can build like that? Huh? What internet? What's that? This is all useless communication. So many side effects, so many problems of this communication. Now in the Vedic times we can see they had such perfect communication without internet. The Indra offended Brihaspati and immediately Asuras came to know. How they came to know?
Even this Parikshit Maharaj also, when he
Yes, when Parikshit Maharaj he is about to leave his body, then the sages from the entire universe came. Immediately they came. From all parts of the universe they came. No need of any viman, nothing. They just landed there. That's another point. Of course, Kumbh Mela is sort of pre-planned. But yes, they didn't require sound system also. In Naimisharanya, how many sages were there?
18.
No sound system required. So you see whether there is progress or degradation. So what is that to be proud of? Only because people are ignorant of that technology, they think we have made so much progress. Actually, it's not progress, it's degradation. Only thing is they don't know what is actual Vedic technology. They're not aware of it. So therefore they think they're doing something great. So therefore the roots of everything is there in the Vedas. Everything is there. Therefore they had much better technology. Text 24. त एव वेद दुर्मेधैर्धार्यन्ते पुरुषैर्यथा एवं चकार भगवान् व्यास कृपणवत्सलः. Thus the great sage Vyasdev, who is very kind to the ignorant masses, edited the Vedas so they might be assimilated by less intellectual men. So Vyasdev, he did some editing of the Vedas so that the less intelligent people can understand. Here also Prabhupada writes, the Veda is one and the reasons for its divisions in many parts are explained herewith. The seed of all knowledge of the Veda is not a subject matter which can easily be understood by any ordinary man. There is a stricture that no one should try to learn the Vedas who is not a qualified Brahmana. Okay, so the Vedas are not so easy to understand. So it requires a great Brahmanical qualification to understand the Vedas. Of course, Prabhupada says that has been misused now. The Vedas are subjects which had to be explained even to Brahmaji by the Supreme Lord. It said that Brahmaji also, to understand the Vedas, he had to study them 3 times. Comes in the second canto. So Brahmaji with 4 heads also could not understand. Then what Kali Yuga people can understand? Very difficult. Therefore, the subject matter is understood by persons with exceptional qualities of goodness. Persons who are in the modes of passion and ignorance are unable to understand the subject matter of the Vedas. The ultimate goal of Vedic knowledge is Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. This personality is very rarely understood by those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance. In Satyuga, everyone was situated in the mode of goodness. Gradually, the mode of goodness declined during Treta and Dwapar Yugas, and the general mass of people became corrupt. In the present age, the mode of goodness is almost nil. Almost nil. So Prabhupada writes in Bhagavad Gita purpose, the standard of civilization now is the mode of passion. That is the standard now. Mode of goodness is almost nil. And so for the general mass of people, the kind-hearted, powerful sage Srila Vyasadeva divided the Vedas in various ways so that they may be practically followed by less intelligent persons with modes of passion and ignorance. So then what did he do? What was the editing and what exactly he did? That is mentioned in the next verse. Sri Shudra Dvijabandhu Nam Trayina Shruti Gochara Karma Shreyasi Mudhanam Shreya Evam Bhavediha Iti Bharatamakyanam Kripaya Munina Kritam. Out of compassion, the great sage thought it wise that this would enable men to achieve the ultimate goal of life. Thus he compiled the great historical narration called the Mahabharata for women, laborers, and friends of the twice born. Okay, so for Sri Shudra Dvijabandhunam, Trayi Na Shruti Gochara. So for these people, for understanding of these people, so thinking about their Shreyasi, thinking about their welfare, for the Mudanam. So therefore he compiled the Bharatam, the Mahabharata. Yes, and these historical narrations. So in the second paragraph, Prabhupada is explaining, if the father and mother do not undertake the process of spiritual family planning and simply beget children out of passion only, their children are called as Dvijabandhus. Okay, so they may be born in Brahmanical families, but it's only the sanskaras which makes one Dvija. Janma jayate Shudra, sanskarat bhavet Dvija. So if the sanskaras are not performed, one remains a Shudra. And so even if one is born in a Brahmana family, but if there are no sanskaras, then he's called as Dvijabandhu because he won't have any qualities of a Brahmana. Though these Dvijabandhus are certainly not as intelligent as the children of the regular twice born families. And so the Dvijabandhus are classified with Shudras and Gumtas. So now also we find there may be so-called Brahmana families and children born to these so-called Brahmana families, but then they'll surely not have the qualifications of a Brahmana. So mostly what we find nowadays are all Dvijabandhus. And so everyone basically comes in the same category now. Shudras, Dvijabandhus, so everyone is in the same category. So the Shudras and women class do not have to undergo any sanskar, save and except the ceremony of marriage. So therefore that is what we find these days. And nowadays that marriage also is going away. So you can see the degradation. So Mlecchas, Yavanas, not even Shudras, now they're lower than Shudras. So therefore the one sanskara which they're supposed to perform marriage, that is also going. And what they're thinking, they're becoming advanced. But as Prabhupada was saying in today's class, what is their advancement? They're going to the jungle and becoming naked aborigines. That is their advancement. Punar Mushtika Bhava. They are once again going to uncivilized life. So actually, they are only imagining themselves to becoming advanced. The fact is, they are simply becoming degraded to animal civilization. That is the reality. Not even Shudras, animals. So, further down the next paragraph, Prabhupada writes that the less intelligent class of men, namely women, Shudras, and unqualified sons of the higher caste, are devoid of necessary qualifications to understand the purpose of the transcendental Vedas. For them, the Mahabharata was prepared. The purpose of the Mahabharata is to administrate the purpose of the Vedas, and therefore, within this Mahabharata, the summary Veda of Bhagavad Gita is placed. So, the less intelligent are more interested in stories than in philosophy. Okay? And therefore, the philosophy of the Vedas in the form of the Bhagavad Gita is spoken by Lord Sri Krishna. Vyasadeva and Lord Krishna are both on the transcendental plane, and therefore they collaborated in doing good to the fallen souls of this age. So, collaboration. So, Vyasadeva wrote Mahabharata, and within that there is Krishna who spoke the Bhagavad Gita. So, in this way, they collaborated to help the people of the modern day Kali Yuga. The Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all Vedic knowledge. It is the first book of spiritual values, as the Upanishads are. The Vedanta philosophy is the subject matter for study by the spiritual graduates. Only the postgraduate spiritual student can enter into the spiritual or devotional service of the Lord. It's a great science. And the great professor is the Lord himself in the form of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And persons who are empowered by him can initiate others in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So actually, we are able to understand something about the spiritual subject matter only because of the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's the only reason. Otherwise, it's practically impossible for Kali Yuga people to understand spiritual science. So he did all this. Okay, let's see, we have some quotes over here. Okay, Prabhupada's quote, please read.
So this Mahabharata was written for such person who are claiming to be Brahmana, because he is born in the Brahmana family. But according to Shastra scripture, such person are not called Brahmanas. They are called Dvijbandhu, a friend of the Brahmana. So just like I am a son of High Court judge, that does not mean I am also High Court judge. I must be qualified to become a High Court judge. But if I go on that because of my father is a High Court judge, therefore I am also a High Court judge.
Okay, so Prabhupada is giving a nice example here. So if father is High Court judge, does the son automatically become High Court judge? No, he has to get qualification. He cannot automatically become. Continue.
So these things are going on now in India because his forefather was a Brahmana or his father was a Brahmana, and although he has no qualification of a Brahmana, he also claims to be a Brahmana. But the scripture, the Vedic scripture, that does not allow. They will call, no, you are not a Brahmana, you are Brahmana's son. That's all. We can admit so far. There is no harm admitting you that you are the son of a Brahmana. But we cannot admit you a Brahmana. That is quite reasonable. So the Mahabharata was written for such persons.
So later on in the first canto we read of one personality who was born of Brahmana but he didn't have qualifications. Who's that? Yes, Ashwatthama. So therefore he is also addressed as Dvijbandhu. He didn't have the qualifications of Brahmana, though he was son of Dronacharya. Okay. So now 26. Evam pravrittasya sada bhutanam shreyasi dvija sarvatmakena yada natushya dhridayam tataha. O twice born Brahmana, still his mind was not satisfied, although he engaged himself in working for the total welfare of all people. Okay, so in spite of doing all this, he did not feel satisfied. So Prabhupada writes, it was expected that he would be satisfied by all such activities, but ultimately he was not satisfied. 27. Thus the sage, being dissatisfied at heart, at once began to reflect, because he knew the essence of religion, and he said within himself. So Vyasadeva, when he's feeling dissatisfied, he is thinking to himself, he is reflecting, why am I dissatisfied? Here Prabhupada writes an important point. The sage began to search out the cause of not being satisfied at heart. Perfection is never attained until one is satisfied at heart. This satisfaction of heart has to be searched out beyond matter. So somebody can explain these two statements. Perfection is never attained until one is satisfied at heart. The satisfaction of heart has to be searched out beyond matter. Yes, any purports? Yes, Chaitanya Shastri ji.
Perfection of satisfaction of heart, as it says, is
हाँ उसमें बोला ना साहब पकड़.
satisfaction of heart is beyond matter. That means
ठीक है पहला स्टेटमेंट पहला बोलो ना.
it's related. The second it explains.
Okay.
Like the perfection of human form of life is basically attainment of spiritual realization. Going back to order. That is what the second line tells. Satisfaction. Like that.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Something else?
Perfection of human life is to satisfy Krishna. And if Krishna is satisfied, so he is there as Paramatma in our heart. So we will also feel satisfied. So that is the ultimate perfection.
Okay, good point.
And
Okay, Madhusudhan.
So, perfection means to be happy. So, in first statement that one should be to happy, one should be satisfied at his heart. Then only he can become one. Another is that satisfaction of heart is not searched out beyond matter. So until and unless we come on the platform of soul, we cannot become happy really.
Okay, yes, that's right. Unless one comes on the platform, so one cannot be satisfied. Kurmakri brother.
We are spirit soul. So any kind of material thing or material adjustment cannot make the heart satisfied. So that's why anything, the satisfactory element that should be searched out of the matter only.
Correct. Yes. So anything in connection to matter cannot be satisfied. Sundarji.
so the perfection is never attained until one is satisfied at heart. Also, this is like the satisfaction on the level of body, mind, intelligence. They are not actual satisfaction. The satisfaction of the soul is actually the satisfaction of heart. And unless that soul is satisfied, the perfection is never achieved.
Right.
And that soul satisfaction cannot be in the purview of matter.
Yes. Thank you. So, satisfaction here it is said, na ati prasidat, nati prasidat hridaya. So, he was not feeling satisfied at heart. And he was dharmavid, he knew dharma. So therefore, he began to think, why am I dissatisfied? So therefore, the important point is that the practice of spirituality should lead to satisfaction. So in the Bhagavad Gita, 17th chapter, austerity of the mind. Krishna is speaking about austerity of the mind. 16th, 17th verse, I think. 17th chapter, 17th verse. Yes. Somebody can open that. 17 what? 16. Take it, Padu.
Translation. And satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purification of one's existence are the austerities of mind.
Read purport.
To make the mind austere is to detach it from sense gratification. It should be so trained that it can be always thinking of doing good for others. The best training for the mind is gravity in thought. One should not deviate from Krishna consciousness and must always avoid sense gratification. To purify one's nature is to become Krishna conscious. Satisfaction of the mind can be obtained only by taking the mind away from thoughts of sense gratification.
Yes, satisfaction of the mind can be obtained only by taking the thoughts away from sense gratification. So, as long as one is attached to sense gratification, gross or subtle, one cannot be satisfied. Bhukti, mukti, siddhi, kami, sakale ashanta, Krishna bhakta, nishkama, ataiva shanta. So as long as there is any hankering for sense gratification, one cannot be satisfied, because the mind will always be hankering for some sort of sense gratification. So even when we come to devotional service, if we have any material desires, then there will not be satisfaction. But that satisfaction, 3 steps. And Bali Maharaj says, what you're asking for 3 steps, since you have low intelligence, you can ask me for anything. You can ask for planets and kingdoms and gold, whatever you want. And Vamandev says, oh, I'm a Brahmana. Brahmana means he is supposed to be satisfied with what he gets of his own accord. And then he tells a very important point. He says, if a Brahmana is not satisfied, his spiritual knowledge leaks out, like water leaks out from a pot with holes. Somebody like to explain, what is this connection? If one is not satisfied, he says one will lose the spiritual knowledge. It will all leak out. How does it take place? Yes, Gopalandru?
It would be because of many times Vaishnava offenses.
What's the connection?
We may get knowledge, we may hear from Guru, Shastras, everything. But at the same time, we are committing offenses by offending Vaishnava.
No, what is the relation between not being satisfied and offenses?
It could be also, also other part can say is that we are not trying our best to be to do a devotional service, or there are some other things which come up.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Prabhu.
Mind is not satisfied, then Brahmana anchor for puja la pratishtha. That we cannot explain the spiritual path. We anchor for puja la pratishtha.
Okay, fine. So, puja la pratishtha, all these anarthas, then, cannot have good knowledge. Chaitanya.
All this will end up into Dhyayate Vishan Pursa.
Okay, that's also one possibility. Dhyayate Vishan Pursa. Yes, Sadhu Prabhu.
Due to absence of love for Krishna, there is dissatisfaction, and due to this, there is leakage.
Okay, no love for Krishna. Okay, fine.
Because he is not satisfied, he tried to satisfy with his senses. Now he is into trap of trying to satisfy his own senses. Whatever the knowledge he acquired, to control the senses, that will not be in use. So it will be, if it is not in use, it is not in the access.
Okay, good points. Sharad Guru?
So, Prabhupada says either you are with Krishna or you are in Maya. So, if you are not satisfied with the Krishna consciousness, then we will naturally look out for satisfaction through gross material sense gratification. So that's how we lose that spiritual, and then we no longer try to find satisfaction in spiritual things. So
Yes, that's right.
Even the scripture tells about living sense gratification, working for the pleasure of Krishna. And if we are in sense gratification, so even though we may be reading those scriptures, but we may be finding those scriptures, or in the sense that how can I take find my own point or work for my own sense gratification.
Using scriptures for
one's own sake.
okay, for one's selfish purposes.
So even though that is even the spiritual knowledge, we are not working upon for detachment or for pleasing Krishna or ourselves.
Okay, good point. Sandrajit.
The satisfaction is like a pot which can sustain the knowledge. But then if somebody is not satisfied, then that knowledge, even before it turns out to realization, it is like it goes in vain. So there is no holding of that knowledge till it becomes ripened without that satisfaction.
Okay, fine. Nimanatha Prabhu? Comment something. What is your understanding of this statement? How knowledge leaks out? Okay, fine. So the important point is that when one is not satisfied with whatever one gains by one's own accord, as a Brahmana especially, he is supposed to be satisfied with what destiny gives, what Krishna gives. Brahmana is supposed to be satisfied. We see the examples of Sudama Brahman, we see the examples of Kolavacha Sridhar, all these people. Just satisfied with whatever Krishna has given. That's a prime quality of a Brahmana. And so if that does not happen, then and the mind is hankering for some sense objects, then even though one gains knowledge, spiritual knowledge, but that spiritual knowledge cannot be used for the ultimate purpose of spiritual realization, because one cannot be focused in one's spiritual practices. भोगेश्वर्य प्रसक्तानां तया परतचेतसां व्यवसायित्मिका बुद्धि समाधौ न विदीयते. So that is what happens. Mind can't be focused. So when the mind can't be focused, it gets diverted. And the spiritual knowledge may be there, but in one sense it leaks out because one cannot be focused in applying that spiritual knowledge. And then ultimately there won't be much realization because one is not focused in one's spiritual practices. And so therefore, we find that it's just like, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is explaining to Rupa Goswami, as the Bhaktilata is growing, at the same time, what grow? Yes, Upashaka, the weeds also grow. What are basically all these weeds? Yes, they're basically material desires. They're basically material desires that grow along with the Bhaktilata. So what do these weeds do? Yes, they choke the Bhaktilata. So the water that is supposed to go for the main creeper, that goes to the weeds and nourishes the weeds become stronger. So therefore, as the Bhaktilata is growing, then all these weeds also can grow at the same time. And then the material desires also may grow. The only thing is that now, when one is practicing devotional service and the weeds grow, then just like the weeds become very difficult to detect because the main plant also looks green, the weeds also look green. So everything looks same, very difficult to detect. So it is natural. See, when the plant grows, do weeds grow or they don't grow? Sometimes they grow, sometimes they don't grow. Is it like that? They always grow, correct? Is it unusual for weeds to grow? No, they always grow. It is but natural. So similarly, when the Bhakti Lata grows, it is natural for the weeds to grow. Why?
Because of watering.
So what is the water here? Water is for the plant. What is the water for the Bhakti Lata? The spiritual practices. So the spiritual practices, the bhakti practices are very attractive. Bhakti is very attractive. So because of the practice of bhakti, bhoga, aishwarya, everything comes. Natural. Naturally they come because bhakti is very attractive. So many people offer respects, so many people offer obeisances. Correct? Prabhu, maybe sometimes Maharaj also. Sometimes they're ready to wash your lotus feet also. And how many gifts people get? People are ready to give so many gifts. So many things come. So it's natural. It's natural. It's natural for all these weeds to grow. The problem begins when one thinks, I deserve all this. I deserve all this. And one becomes attached to them, and one thinks, I require more. Why only so much? I require more. So then, this is how, when one becomes dissatisfied, one is supposed to be satisfied, but one becomes dissatisfied in the practice of bhakti. Now we are not speaking some hypothetical things. These things do happen. Therefore, we find new devotees don't face these problems. These problems begin after a few years. After a few years, when one's bhakti becomes little prominent, then all these things start coming very naturally. But then when one begins to think, I deserve all this, in fact I should get more popularity, I should get more prestige, and sometimes one thinks that I think this brahmachari ashram is choking my efforts to get some more prestige and popularity. Maybe I can find better avenues. All these things happen. And that is how the weeds begin to choke the Bhakti Lata. The mind gets diverted from the goal, from the focus. And then even though one may be a big Pandit, may have mastered many scriptures, but still when one does not uproot the weeds, rather one allows the mind to get diverted from the goal, then the spiritual knowledge leaks out. It cannot be practiced. There is no realization. So therefore, very important points. that it is very essential that if we want to achieve perfection, then one has to be satisfied. If everyone thinks, oh, now somebody may become popular, somebody may become famous because of whatever reason. Ultimately, it's all Krishna's will. But if everyone thinks, no, I should become popular like that person, I also should become popular. I should have so many YouTube followers, this, that. So if one starts contemplating on these things, then the focus is lost. Focus is lost, spiritual knowledge is lost, realization is lost, and the ultimate goal of human life can be lost. Therefore, satisfaction of heart has to be searched out beyond matter. Satisfaction of the heart is natural. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada wrote that beautiful statement at the end of the purport to 1.2.8, the last statement of the purport. The hankering soul can only be, no, the hankering soul must be satisfied by the perfect scientific process of perfect devotional service. Totally beyond matter. Perfect scientific process of perfect devotional service. Is the reference correct?
Yes.
So that is the meaning of this statement. So therefore, if one is finding oneself being drawn by material desires and one is feeling dissatisfied because of that, there should be an alarm ringing. What's happening? So then one has to, as Srila Prabhupada explains in the CC purports, one has to painstakingly uproot the weeds. Prabhupada writes this, painstakingly uproot. Why painstakingly? It's very painful. Because the mind is hankering. Mind is hankering. I want this prestige, I want this fame, I want this popularity. And then we approach some senior Vaishnava and the senior Vaishnava says, forget it. This is not for you. I thought it's for me. So therefore, first of all, to detect the weeds, we can't detect them. Very difficult to detect because they look similar, correct? Very difficult. So when one is feeling dissatisfaction due to material desires, if we are a little intelligent and sincere, then we should approach a superior Vaishnava. Reveal our minds and seek guidance before it becomes too late. And many times we don't do it because we expect the outcome. So we think if I go to this senior, most probably he will smash all my big plans for material success. So better is don't tell. Or even better is go to such a senior who will sanction my material desires. No, we are telling from little experience, whatever we have, we are telling. So all these things happen. But if we are sincere, and it's very difficult to detect because material desires are born of Rajogun, correct? Rajogun. Sanga, Trishna. These are the characteristics of Rajogun. Sanga means attachment. Trishna means these are symptoms of Rajogun. So when the Rajogun, one is influenced by Rajogun, what happens? You remember the example of the yellow colored glasses? Yeah, everything is yellow. His vision becomes covered. He cannot see the reality. He cannot see reality. That's exactly what happened to Bharat Maharaj. Even though so elevated, he could not see the reality. He was getting attached to the deer. There was nobody to tell him. And he could not understand that he is getting attached to a wrong object. He could not understand. Even though he was so elevated, he could not understand. And the attachment to the deer became a cause for his dissatisfaction. All the time he was thinking about the deer, correct? Now if you read that section of the Bhagavatam, Bharat Maharaj, in fact, so at a certain point, when the deer goes away somewhere in the jungle, Bharat Maharaj is thinking, oh, this deer is such a nice deer, but I am so cruel. I don't have any karuna. I don't have any mercy on this deer. I cannot take care of this deer. But most probably the deer will come back because the deer is very noble-hearted. So you see, the attachment to the deer is causing so much of dissatisfaction in his heart. So much of problem it's creating, but he is unable to realize. And his entire focus has gone on the deer. And his spiritual practices are crumbling down. But still he is unable to detect. That is how the Rajogun covered him. He is unable to detect. Rajogun has just covered him. And many times I refer to this purport, 5.12.14, where Prabhupada writes, the reason Bharat Maharaj fell down is he did not take instructions from a spiritual master. He did not take any instructions. And as a result, he fell down. So, the important point is that yes, so if we are finding ourselves being pulled by material desires, and the material desires are causing us dissatisfaction, then all these should be reasons for concern. Just like here, Vyasadeva, he's feeling dissatisfied. He didn't just neglect the dissatisfaction. He became concerned about it. Why am I feeling dissatisfied? And so, as soon as he felt dissatisfaction, so then immediately he thought of consulting his spiritual master. So that's sincerity. So if we are sincere, then when we are being pulled by material desires, there's dissatisfaction, then we need to consult someone, take guidance and take appropriate steps. That's very important. This is an important lesson that we learn from this pastime of Vyasadeva. Okay, we'll take one question before a break.
So thank you for that satisfaction part. So
hope you're satisfied.
Somewhat. So it is said sometimes that a sadhaka should not be satisfied with the amount of devotional service that one has done.
Yes, but sadhaka should not be satisfied spiritually, he should be satisfied materially.
Yeah. So then sometimes when we are trying to serve, has to be searched out beyond matter, the satisfaction of heart. So, we are trying to be satisfied in our services and in our sadhana. So then how to really identify whether, when I am trying to find that satisfaction in my services, so whether is it really turning out to be, out of matter, beyond matter, or how it is?
What's the goal? What's the motive? That makes the difference. very difficult to identify actually. So somebody may have a desire, okay, I want to preach to all the boys of all the colleges in Mumbai. Is it a spiritual desire or material desire?
Depends.
Depends on what?
Depends on his motto, like what he wants to establish by that.
Yes. So everything is based on that. Everything depends on. Srila Prabhupada wanted to turn the entire universe into Vaikuntha. For what? So what's our motive? That's what is most important. And of course, even on the spiritual platform, then we cannot be unreasonable in our goals and expectations. So we should understand what is our capacity, how much can I do, and then accordingly decide. And again, therefore, guidance is important.
And one small thing is, this Vyasdev is feeling dissatisfied even after writing Mahabharata, right? Or before, after writing Mahabharata?
Yes, after he wrote everything. So that's what, he has already written everything. And still he is feeling dissatisfied.
So this 5 of the quoted Pancham, what you are mentioning is here, 22nd sloka is Puranas, right?
Yeah, Puranas, Itihasas, Pancham.
It is Mahabharata only.
Yes, Itihas. Okay, fine, we'll take a break and come. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.